How important is the relationship between inflammation and EDS symptoms when treating someone with HEDS? So inflammation, I look at inflammation slightly different. It doesn't carry the same weight in my mind. I think about it as like my body's wonderful healing chemistry. Um, so the question is if we are having a disproportionate amount of inflammation to the task, and is that inflammation serving us or not? Sometimes that it can be too big of a response, in which case it can be problematic for people. But you're just trying to look at, I don't know that I'd look at it in terms of inflammation per se. I would look at it more in terms of recovery, in terms of how much input can we give someone to where it's enough to where it will start to make a change, where people can start a healing process, get a like training effect, but it's not so much that they can't recover day by day. And I'm not saying that everybody should be like feeling great. That's not really our aim. But it's more I want to see that your body is able to come in with all that healing chemistry and to be able to do that repair without bogging down that repair system so much that we're not able to make progress. And that is probably more true to how I might think about it. I might not use inflammation as language, but I may use more like how well are we hitting our recovery markers. And I don't honestly I don't use like the subjective sense of things as my number one marker. So like how you feel may not be the best marker, and it may actually prevent us from getting through on a function level to where we need to go. Same way as if I'm trying to get stronger or run a marathon, I'm going to get sore in that process, and I have to be okay and almost like welcome that soreness because I know it's healing. And that can be really hard because it messes with your brain when you've got autonomic problems or ME problems, because like the thing that you don't want to feel sometimes on the way through the healing process are some of the feelings that you're going to have through healing. So it messes with you to be like, I don't ever want to feel that again. But like I will also probably have to feel that again as I'm starting to get stronger, which is it messes with your head and it makes it hard. So we try to strip that away and think of like what can we measure that gets us there, so we're not focused on the way we feel, but we can use metrics to say like, here's how I'm doing. I feel bad today. I actually did better today. Let's see what tomorrow brings. Oh, I feel better tomorrow. Away we go like that. Is there such a thing as to have too much difference between your diastolic and systolic pressure numbers when you take your vitals? Great question. This is what's called pulse pressure. So it's the difference between the top number and the bottom number. What it can tell you is the resistance levels in the system. So what do I mean by that? If those things that like you pump them and it allows you to blow air into the fireplace, so you can, I don't remember what they're called, but like it's like an accordion, and you push it and then it can like help light the fire. So if you can imagine that's like your heart. It's like as you're pushing it in, that blood is being pumped out. And depending on how much resistance is in the vessel, that blood might really come through there big, or it like the vessel can be like, sorry, that's not a good way to say it. The vessel can be really tight, which is going to feel like there's more pressure coming through, or it can be kind of loose, which is going to be less pressure coming through. So when you look at the difference between systolic and diastolic, the sharpness of that can tell you a little bit about, number one, how long that blood's coming through, but also to what degree that vessel has tension in it. Is it holding it steady and coming through, or is it coming through and then relaxing a lot? If it's relaxing a lot, then we're getting not so much pressure in the vessel to be able to match the pressure from the heart. So it goes up real fast and then down, up real fast and then down. We don't like those as much, particularly in people that have like pooling problems with vascularity, because we're not able to sustain the pressure as well, so that every individual heartbeat is very oscillatory, and that can be harder on people. And you'll see those on the Doppler, where you see these big spikes and then big drop-offs, and you just get these big oscillations that happen and tell you that maybe the tension in that vessel isn't as good as we'd hope for. So best treatment for paroxysmal sympathetic hyperactivity, love it, sympathetic storms. So best treatment for it, I would look at, so when I think about this, I actually am trying to chase it down in the neuraxis for where it's at. Because sometimes we're kind of looking at nodes that are existing between like cortical reticular outputs. So the way that we're having our kind of cortical medullary system engage, where we may not have enough output from the cortical reticulospinal outputs to be able to gate activity at the cord, right? So it's like, is in that cortical reticular component? Is it in the junction between the reticular system and the spinal cord? Are we at the interneuronal pool in the cord? Maybe we're looking at like a spinal, like a myelopathy. And so like all of these things can play a role. So, and then you're thinking about it on the sensory end coming up and then on the motor end coming back down. So with that, you're kind of like, you're going to look at the nodal kind of system between there. Like how well is that output coming? Is that changing because I'm having alterations in sensory activity that are coming in, and then I'm not getting good projection in the frontal system, and then my supplementary and premotor outputs into the basal ganglia and then down into the substantia nigra are failing, and then I'm getting changes in mesencephalic output into the reticular system that drops off activity into the pontine reticular system, and then I'm not getting the normal reticulospinal outputs that are going to be inhibitory to the cord. So like that is kind of like this system that we're walking through to figure out where it's problematic in there. And then from that, we'll pick a treatment modality that kind of is going to speak to that area the best. So we'll look at, like, let's say it's something that's in like the cortical reticular system. What are the presynaptic pools to that drive that in a way that stabilizes it? So is that going to be something like, can I activate an auditory pathway? Can I activate a visual pathway or an eye movement pathway? Can I use a vestibular movement or a limb movement? What one of those axes is going to help me to be able to stabilize it the most? Or can I add them together? Or can I isolate them in ways that I'm going to have to do it unilaterally or bilaterally? So in the neuro rehab component, that's the way I'm going to think about it, is dissecting out where I think that problem is. Same way you'd look at it like in the longitudinal level of the lesion, and then from there, like what talks to that, and then that would be kind of the way I would consider it. So I hope that's helpful. How do you tell the difference between one floater in two eyes or two different floaters in two eyes? Floaters are going to happen if it's a floater, if that is the thing, it's going to be in the eye. It's not in the brain. That's a different phenomenon. So if it's in the eye, and I see, like if I'm looking out here, and let's just say, pretend I see a little floater floating right here. What I'm going to do, let's say my finger's the floater. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close my eye, and then I'm going to see, do I still see that floater? Okay, and then I'm going to open, I'm going to close the other eye. If it is something that is a floater in the eye, you will only see it when that eye is open. So if it's a floater in my left eye, I will only see it when my left eye is open. When I close my left eye, it's going to disappear. Okay, so that's how you're going to differentiate if those floaters are in your eyes. If it's always there, no matter how many eyes I got open, then it's probably something that's happening actually in the projections back to the visual cortex, or in the visual cortex itself, where we're actually just having like a little glitch in your matrix where you're seeing a thing that's not there. Okay, great question. Oh man, Rob, I always forget how late it is there. You're such a rock star. It's 5:30 a.m. I'm rough to drafting the question, and yes, it was a theory based on your teaching last week. It was a super strong one. I hope that that's helpful, and I love the logic that you're putting behind it. I can tell that you're really sharp at thinking through these things. So thanks for adding that to our conversation. Really cool.